Welcome back to the program. After they took out the Ayatollah Khamenei and we saw what they did on the first day, how they hit everybody during the day and they killed like 49 or 50 of the top Iranian leaders, at that point, I said, gee, I wonder if they got Ali Larijani. And of course, he wasn't there at that location. Well, in the latest episode of FAFO, this loudmouth scumbag is now enjoying his 72 goats because he was eliminated late last night in Israeli airstrikes. And get this, how did they find out where he was? Iranian people gave the tip to the Israelis, and they took him out instantly, vaporized his ass. So this is big. Why is this big? Because he was the de facto leader of the Iranian regime after Khamenei was, killed, and then of course the fudge packing colon cowboy who lost his leg and is a mess or whatever isn't really the leader, the son. Ali Larijani is the one that was closest to Khamenei and was a top commander and kind of like the brains behind everything anyway. He's now gone. So what does this mean? It means that they are rudderless. They are leaderless. They're not even in the second bench or the third bench. They're probably fourth, fifth, sixth bench right now in leadership, okay? Completely wiped out. So, loudmouth Iranian leader eliminated overnight in strikes. This is the guy that was taunting President Trump, saying, quote, "Iran does not fear your paper threats," he wrote on social media. "Even those greater than you could not eliminate the Iranian nation. Watch out for yourself or you'll be eliminated next." This was a threat directed at President Trump. Okay? Well, it looks like Larijani, who again I said was a top target, is with his goats right about now. So this is really, really good. March 17th, 2026, the Air Force carried out a precise strike. Military intelligence incorporating unique operations capability in the heart of Tehran, eliminating Ali Larijani, Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, who served as the de facto leader of the Iranian terrorist regime while he was located near the capital of Tehran. For years, Larijani was considered one of the most senior and veteran figures at the top of the Iranian terrorist regime and was close to the Ayatollah. Following the elimination of Khamenei, Larijani solidified his position as the de facto leader of the Iranian terrorist regime and led the fight against the state of Israel and the countries in and around the region. As part of his role, Larijani led the political security coordination of the Iranian terrorist regime and engaged in direct international activity. During the recent wave of protests against the regime in Iran, Larijani led enforcement and violent, deadly suppression actions and personally oversaw the massacre carried out against the Iranian protesters. Now, just the other day, well, let me back up. I would say about a month ago, before we even struck Iran or anything like that, you'll remember, this is maybe a month and a half, 6 weeks to 2 months ago, I was giving you real numbers and real reports on how many people were being massacred. I was doing video after video, and I was saying, President Trump, what are we waiting for? These people are dying. Let's go in. Let's take care of business, right? Well, at the time, the information that I was getting was coming from inside Iran, and it was coming from hospitals, doctors, nurses, things like that. And Larijani was one of the main people responsible for those massacres, okay? And what he did is he sent the Al-Quds force, the Basij, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, into the hospitals where protesters were being treated for their injuries, with direct directions to the doctors and the nurses not to treat the protesters. In other words, let them die. So what happened is many of these Iranian Revolutionary Guards went to the hospitals at gunpoint, and they went into the hospitals. They raped many of the nurses that refused to not do their job, which would be to save people's lives. And many of them were executed in front of the other nurses. And then the doctors that were actually in surgery and performing surgery were shot and killed while performing surgery to save protesters. And then the IRGC sickos and bloodthirsty criminals went to each bed in the hospital and blew away all the patients. Now, when I gave that report, nobody else was giving you that report, okay? Well, it has now come out, and now it's leaking out that those reports not only were accurate, but they're even almost worse than what I was even reporting at the time, okay? And so the numbers that I have gotten are anywhere between 87,000 and as much as 112,000 people, protesters, innocent Iranians, have been killed before the airstrikes from Israel and the United States. Okay? That's a lot of people just dead from this sick regime. And as many as 3 million plus were injured. So this was, as I've said before, more than anything else, a humanitarian mission. Okay? Now, other people that were killed in the same strikes were Larijani's son, senior Basij commander, was also killed. His name is Qasim Qureshi, the commander of the IRGC's Basij paramilitary forces. He was also killed along with that. And again, Israeli officials say that tips from Tehran residents helped enable the Larijani strike. You think these people want to be done with this regime? They're risking their lives to give intelligence to the Israelis to help them liberate them. Unbelievable. And then Iran's Guard confirms the death of Basij chief Soleimani as well. Now, from what I can understand, this was not a relative or maybe a very distant relative of Qasem Soleimani, same last name and everything else. Some reports say they're not related. Some say they're distant cousins. Doesn't matter. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard, IRGC, in a statement on Tuesday, confirmed the death of Brigadier General Ghala Mirza Soleimani, the commander of its paramilitary Basij forces, in what it called a U.S. Israeli airstrike martyrdom operation. And then he goes on to talk about how he was martyred for the people. We will revenge, yada, yada, yada. Sure, we will. Bullshit to that. And I'll end this segment with this. This is very interesting. So we've heard that Mutaba, I guess his name is, Khomeini, the son, the Ayatollah, who also might have been a little light in the loafers. There was reports that even the senior was also possibly gay. But the Khomeini, the son, definitely was gay, 100%. I mean, they said he had a boyfriend. He was doing all kinds of, weird shit and dancing and had, pride flags and everything else. Seriously, like, this guy was absolutely gay, like, completely. And what I understand is he was hit in the initial strike that opened the war when his father was killed. But somehow he escaped because he was Nancying around in his garden. Okay? That's what he was doing. So listen to this. Mutaba Khomeini escaped death by seconds. Iran's new supreme leader survived U.S. and Israeli airstrikes because he stepped outside to tend to his garden. Yeah, that's a very non-gay thing to do. Minutes before his home was hit by multiple missiles. The Telegraph reveals that Mutaba Khomeini was targeted in the exact same attack that killed his father and other members of the Islamic Republic's leadership. but he had gone outside to tend to his garden moments before Israeli Blue Sparrow ballistic missiles hit his residence at 9:32 a.m. local time on February 28th. An address delivered by whoever, Mazahir Husseini, head of protocol for Ali Khamenei's office, to senior clerics and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commanders provides the first detailed accounts of what happened inside the Supreme Leader's compound when it was struck. Mr. Husseini revealed that Mujtaba Khamenei suffered numerous injuries to his leg. So again, there's been reports that he lost his leg. I'm assuming that's the case. Even Pete Hegseth said he's disfigured, whatever, doesn't matter. He's not going to be around much longer. This time when they find out where he is, he's not going to be able to hop away either. So he's limited for sure. While his wife and son were killed instantly, and his brother-in-law was actually decapitated by the bomb. The body of Mohammad Shirazi, chief of Khamenei's military bureau, was also, quote, blown to pieces. Only, quote, a few kilos of his flesh could be used to even identify him, Mr. Husseini told the meeting held on March 12th in Tehran's Kokok neighborhood. Mujtaba Khamenei lived in the same compound as his father in the Iranian capital, Tehran. It also housed religious halls where Ali Khamenei would give speeches, as well as the homes of Khamenei's other children. On February 28th, Ali Khamenei and senior security officials were gathered for a meeting when the missiles hit the compound. Mohammad Pakpar, the IRGC chief, Aziz Nazarida, Iran's defense minister, and Ali Khamenei were among those killed, along with 46 others. Mr. Husseini said in the recording, God's will was that Mujtaba had to go outside in his garden and then return. He was outside and was heading upstairs when they struck the building with a missile. His wife, Miss Haddad, was martyred instantly. Mr. Husseini said Mujtaba sustained injuries to his leg. According to Mr. Husseini, the strikes targeted multiple locations within the office complex simultaneously and appeared aimed at wiping out the entire Khamenei family. Then it says, also hit were Mujtaba's home on the upper floor, as well as the residence below, which belonged to his brother-in-law, Misbah al-Huda Balgari Khani, and the home of his brother Mustafa and his wife. The missile was so powerful that it went downstairs where Mr. Misbah was, and it went to Mr. Misbah's room. Mr. Husseini said the missiles were struck in a way that cut his head in half. Mustafa Khamenei and his wife were nearby in a third residence when they too were struck and martyred instantly. And then it says, none of Ali Khamenei's other children have appeared publicly since the strikes. None have issued any congratulatory messages or pledges of allegiance when Mujtaba was selected as the next supreme leader. He has not been seen from since the start of the war or in the 18 days since his, quote, election. His only message to his people came in the form of a written message read on state television, leading to speculation, including from President Trump, that he could be much more badly injured than Iran is willing to admit. Military Chief Mohammad Shirazi was targeted in an attempt to scrub secession planning. Mr. Husseini claimed Mr. Shirazi was considered the crucial link between Iran's military command and the supreme leader. Mr. Husseini said this dear man had information on all military personnel. The enemy knew that. While hitting the supreme leader, they hit him too because they knew that he would replace those who had been killed, and when new commanders were introduced, they could get a chance to influence the rioters and infiltrators and do something. However, he was blown to pieces as well. They could not find anything from him, and at the end, they found just a few kilos of his flesh that they used to identify his body. An Iranian official said military commanders had no information about the supreme leader's condition and that all commanders have no news about him. U.S. intelligence assessments suggest Ali Khamenei had reservations about his son succeeding him. He considered Mujtaba to be, quote, not very bright and unqualified to be the nation's new leader, according to CBS News. Separately, there were also rumors of problems in his private life. An Iranian official who spoke to the Telegraph said the American claims merely confirmed what we were already widely known inside Iran. He said, "This is not something the Americans should tell us. Everyone knew that the supreme leader did not want Muttaba to become the next leader, especially because of his proclivities," end quote. The source then added, Muttaba was selected, but it was against the will of the supreme leader himself, and maybe against his own will too. We still have not heard anything from him. So there you have it. There's the inside details of what happened on the strike on February 28th. Bottom line, this regime is pretty much over, okay? It's pretty much over. Once Larijani was eliminated, that was the last key person that had any leadership ability in the country. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former president, apparently he was vaporized on the first day as well, but then there was some reports saying that he might have lived and he's alive and he escaped. So the only one that would be alive, I guess, would be him. And one other person was the Ayatollah Arafi. He might still be alive, but there's reports that he was vaporized as well. So Israel and the United States are continuing to do what they need to do to free these people in Iran. And yes, Cuba is going to be next. And my guess is by May, if not even sooner than that, because they just got hit today with a 6.0 earthquake. These poor people, no power, no food, no nothing. Now we're finding out that the communist regime is embracing some form of capitalism and is allowing Cuban dissidents to start businesses and things like that in Cuba. So they're already kind of, caving, if you will, to what America's demands are, which is to get rid of communism. But as I said before, all leaders in Cuba need to be eliminated as well. And we'll see what happens. But interesting times and historical times at that. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.